Okay, welcome back for the last part of One Man's Faith today. We've been looking at covenant friendships, and now we're looking at marriage. Marriage is a covenant. Marriage is a covenant. Under God, it's a covenant. That's why we go through the processes that we go through. Look at Romans 7, 1 through 3. It says, "Or do you not know, brethren, for I'm speaking to those who know the law, that the law has jurisdiction over a person for as long as he lives? For the married woman is bound by law to her husband while he is living. But if her husband dies, she's released." Now, don't get any ideas. Don't get any ideas. She is released from the law concerning her husband. So then, if while her husband is living, she is joined to another man, she shall be called an adulteress, because you don't break covenant. But if her husband dies, she is freed from the law, so that she is not an adulteress, though she was joined to another man, or though that she becomes joined to another man. You see, it's covenant. You don't break covenant. Death is the only thing. 1 Corinthians 7. Now concerning the things, verse 1, now concerning the things about which I wrote, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. I don't know where Paul's coming from, but I'm glad that's not a command from God. But because of immoralities, each man is to have his own wife, and each woman is to have her own husband. The husband must fulfill his duty to the wife, and likewise also the wife to the husband. You see, my body is not mine. It belongs to my wife. That's part of covenant. Her body's not hers, it's mine because of covenant. When we come together in covenant, we are to walk in covenant. I have to consider my wife when I do things. I can't just say, okay, woman, we're married. Hey, but I'm going to go spend time with Mary. All right? When I'm ready to come back to you, I will. But no, you can't do that. It's wrong to do that. It's wrong. Have eyes, men, for your wife. Oh, but I don't love her anymore. Then you ask God to fulfill that love back in you. He will do it. He will do it. He will do it. Listen, you can't get out of a marriage without hurting somebody. It's because you're wrenching apart a covenant. And when you hurt somebody, you're breaking the other side of the covenant that you have with God. The covenant through Jesus Christ and the new covenant through His blood. You see, you're surrounded. If you are a Christian, you've accepted Jesus as your Lord and you're walking in His ways, then you can't do those things. You will get hurt. The other person will get hurt. The kids will get hurt. And let me tell you, divorce hurts them. Marriage should be like being in a room, no windows, the door's barred, and somebody starts a fire. You don't run around trying to get out. You put the fire out. Learn. Listen. Yes, that's two different total entities coming together as one. There's going to be times of strife. As you learn to grow, as you learn to understand who you are, as you learn your limits within the marriage. But it's not a reason to get out of it. You married them. You married them. Stay with it. Listen, let's just look at the marriage, the wedding itself, okay? What happens? You come into a church, they ask you, are you with the bride or are you with the groom? Why? Because the bride's side sits on one side, the groom's side sits on the other. Why? What's that? Remember the two tribes? The two tribes when they come together? to form a covenant. All right, you have the two tribes represented. The bride and the groom come down the aisle. They pass between the two families that are coming together. Normally, it's a white runner that runs down through the middle. What's that saying? That this is holy ground. Why do the parents have special seating? Because they have authority over the bride and the groom until they're married. And then after the marriage, they become special counselors. They no longer have a say in those two. They become special counselors. They come alongside and they should try and help. Why? The groom enters first. Why? Because he's the covenant initiator. The father walks the bride down the aisle. Why? Because he's saying, I endorse giving my wife to this man who is the best man in the world for her. And he's also saying, I am presenting my daughter as a chaste virgin. At least that's what he should be. That should be what happens. Why is the wedding dress white? For purity, to show purity. Why do they say, who gives this woman away? Because it's a verbal commitment of covenant on the family's part, and it's a transfer of authority. When he says, I and my wife do, he's saying, listen, we're transferring the authority. And normally, he brings her up, places her beside the groom, and joins them together and backs off. He's saying, now there's a transfer of authority. These two are coming together. Why do they take the right hand? It's a symbol of the cutting of the wrist. Remember? You don't want blood at a wedding, so you do it a little different. Why does the groom make the vow first? Because he's the leader and he takes responsibility for the marriage. Listen, guys, God's holding you responsible for that marriage. He's holding you responsible. He is going to get you. And I always tell the women when I'm counseling them, submission is this, because the Bible says, wives submit. That's all right. Listen, ladies, submission is this. You're bowing over so God can smack the husband. Step out of the way, women. Let God handle the husband. You've got to bow out. You've got to submit to the best possible way that you can. Now, yes, I know, and this is not a teaching on marriage. Maybe we'll do that soon, because I know that there are times when there's abuse and things like that. That's something else to look at. But ladies, you have no business staying in an abusive situation without doing something about it. And that is calling the police and getting him away. He has no business or authority to abuse you. Matter of fact, God says, husbands, love your wife as I, Christ, loved the church and gave myself for her. That's the only situation that a man has authority in, is to love your wife. And if you will love her, she will submit. She will do what you want because she sees the love But you're being a bully. Matter of fact, if any of you know of a man who's that way, you ought to go smack him upside the head, because he has no business doing that. No man has any business slapping around a woman. All right, I jumped off my bandwagon there. Okay, wedding rings, they are a symbol of covenant. We don't cut the wrist. We put on a wedding ring. It's a memorial to remember the covenant that you came in. A bride's veil shows modesty and respect. That I've hidden myself from the world. I am to be this man only. Why do we pronounce the husband and wife? It's a clear pronouncement to the world that the covenant has been made. I now pronounce you man and wife, we say, which is a pronouncement of the covenant being made. The introduction of the new couple, I proudly present to you Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It's an announcement of the name change. Remember, in covenant, there's a name change. Signing of the license is a memorial. Signing of the guest book, those that sign it are the witnesses. Hey, I was there. I saw you marry her. The receiving line that we normally have a reception, it's the blessing line, where people bless the two for what they've done and for the long years of marriage that they're going to have. The special invitation to reception is a special invitation to the covenant meal. Serving of food is the feast of the covenant. There's always a meal, a feast that happens at the covenant. Why do we feed cake to each other? Why does the bride and the groom feed cake to each other? It's not just for funny photos or to see which one is really going to smash it against their other's face. What are we saying? What is cake? It's a bread. Bread represents body. And we're saying, my body is your body. My body is your body. You're in covenant. You're in covenant. Keep that covenant. Build that covenant. Make that covenant a memorial. And keep in mind, it's forever. God bless you. Have a great time. I'll see you next week.